And now we are live with the Capital Factory's first ever focus on veteran entrepreneurship. I'm Joseph Kopser, your host for the next 4 hours or so. This is an amazing format that we're just thrilled about. We got to give huge props, of course, to Microsoft for being the overall title sponsor for what we're doing, because not only is this important because we're sitting here on the edge of Veterans Day, we're also at a very trying time in our nation's history. Whether it's looking at what COVID is doing to us as a country, whether we're looking at how as a society we're recognizing the important role of recognizing people that are underserved or have not enough access to the instruments of whether it be the economy, education, or opportunity. This is the Capital Factory and its amazing ecosystem leaning forward to be able to figure out a way to be able to enable more people. And the veteran community is just so one of those areas that not only am I proud to be from, but I'm honored to be partnering as your host today with the Capital Factory. So let's talk about what's going to happen. I don't know what your background is like or what brought you here, but for me, I was in the Army for 20 years. At the end of that 20 years, I had an idea for a company. I knew I'd be leaving the service, but I wasn't really quite sure I had the tools and the network to do it. Luckily for me, I had friends and partners like Craig Cummings, my co-founder with Ride Scout, who helped teach me and guide me through the process. What you all have today is really so much more than we had back then. We're going to wrap around you today the tools, the idea, and the ecosystem to know how to do it. But more importantly, we're going to enable technologies like Hopin, the platform that you're in today, to really know how to best connect to everything and everyone in the service of enabling you to build on that idea or to make that smooth transition out of the military. Whatever age or stage you are in life, the destination that you're heading towards, this summit is just one more great example of how there are ecosystems out there for you to help. So let's talk about how we're going to actually use this platform today. The first thing I'd encourage you to do is get into Hopin in the chat section. You'll see there's a main stage. And then in terms of each one of the events that you see today, you'll be able to chat in real time. Take and record those names and then follow up later on, either in the ecosystem that is the Capital Factory or in your own persistence as an entrepreneur. But the key is the learning doesn't stop here today. So with that, what I want to do is turn it over to one of the co-founders of Capital Factory, Josh Baer, for some opening remarks to kind of set the scene for what we're looking for. And then we're going to jump right into it today. So Josh, go ahead and take it away.
Howdy, my name is Joshua Baer, and I'm the founder and CEO of Capital Factory, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Veterans in Tech Summit today. Capital Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurs in Texas, and Texas is the #1 state for startups in the U.S. Thousands of entrepreneurs, programmers, designers, and veterans gather day and night in person and online for meetups, classes, and coworking so that they can plug into this community and help push their business forward. And with Capital Factory, we have boots on the ground in Austin, Dallas, and Houston, and now online, as you can see. And using that, we use this to meet all the best entrepreneurs in Texas and help connect them into the people they need to meet, to investors, to customers, to employees, and to mentors, people that can help them move their business forward. And then we invest in those companies. We've been the most active early stage investor in Texas since 2010. Now, why do we care about diversity? It's because diversity is a big deal. It's really important for the tech community in particular. It's important for the world, but it's important here. This is a place where there are a lot of groups that are traditionally underrepresented in tech. And it's not just a moral problem. It is a moral problem, but it's a business problem, because we know that businesses perform better when they have all kinds of different people on them. And that's why we're so passionate about increasing all areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion here at Capital Factory. We have 6 main areas that we focus on: women, people of color, Latinx, veterans, LGBTQ, and people accessibility, and those are our kind of main focus areas. But the bigger picture is, how do we make sure this is a really broad and diverse camp? Now, we have to be intentional about it, because we got here from being unintentional, from hundreds of years of systemic discrimination, from the system being set up wrong. And so we have to work at it. We have to do things like this today to help really change things. We also partner with every other organization we can find, bring them in and let them do their great work and bring that into our community. And then we put up $100,000 investment prizes, these big investment challenges for teams with diverse founders to help bring them into our community. And that's really worked for us too. Today's Veterans in Tech, it's one of those 6 pillars that we do. The next big event coming up for diversity is our Black in Tech Summit in February. It's always a huge event. We have a little bit of pause for the holidays, but please help us get the word out about that too. If you know anybody that should come plug into that in February. Today, we have a great lineup for you. We've got Michael Sorrell, the CEO and founder of EF Overwatch. They recruit special forces teams to coming out to go into the business world and bring that extreme ownership mindset to it. I think you're going to really enjoy hearing from him as he gets interviewed by Sabrina from Bunker Labs, one of our closest partners, particularly in working with helping the veteran community plug into the business community. So perfect fit for being here today. I want to thank our partners, Microsoft, CACI, and Baker Bots. We couldn't do this without you. Thanks for helping to make all this happen today. Thanks for making this a priority. We really appreciate it. And I just want to remind you all that the reason you're here is to meet other people. And that's a little harder to do when we're here virtual. So you got to lean in. You got to put the extra effort in. You got to turn on your video. You got to put some comments in the chat. Put yourself out there, because that's how you're going to get the most out of it. And that's what we want you to get out of it. So do that. Put yourself out there. If I can help you, let me know. You can reach out to me directly. My email is just josh@quityourjob.com, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter @JoshuaBear. So have a great day today. Make the most out of it. Go meet some people that can help you push your business forward. Thanks.
Josh@quityourjob.com has got to be one of the coolest emails that there is, especially for this community of veterans. And what we mean by a community of veterans is, again, it's any stage, any age you are in life. We need to figure out how we can plug you into the ecosystem or take what you're already working on to the next level. And Josh said it best when he's talking about communities that were not always served. I don't know your experiences as a veteran, but my experiences were got a lot of pats on the back. Thanks for your service. But when it came time to really roll up their sleeves and help us out, there weren't always those communities there. But there are today. And thanks to people like Microsoft, we're able to underwrite an event like this to pay for all of the production and background and everything that goes into providing these services. And so with that, let's take it away, Microsoft. And Heidi, love to hear your thoughts.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel incredibly fortunate to be able to kick off today's event. My name's Heidi Connolly. I lead the Army sales team at Microsoft. Like you, I'm a veteran. I served as an Army signal officer and deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom a little over a decade ago. As a veteran, I know how incredibly difficult that transition from the military to the civilian sector can be. I distinctly remember struggling to find programs that supported transitioning veterans with jobs in tech across a variety of backgrounds and experiences. I personally had difficulty understanding what my career path should look like and what next steps to take as I transitioned out of the military. I mistakenly thought that I had to have a job that was very similar to my job in the Army in order to be successful. And looking back upon it now, I understand that I did not accurately understand my value. Today, there are so many more opportunities and programs available to veterans, specifically those in the technology field. When I look back upon my time in the military, the thing I miss most are the people I served with and that sense of community that came with being part of something larger than yourself. That sense of community is something that never leaves you as a veteran. Often you can feel instantly connected with someone because of that unique shared experience. It's a kind of kinship that's hard to explain to those who've never experienced it. And that ease of connection is one of the reasons I'm so excited about today's events. Throughout the afternoon, you'll have the opportunity to build meaningful relationships and gain access to resources to help you develop and grow within that Texas startup ecosystem. At Microsoft, we're committed to working with startups to help you unlock new revenue-generating opportunities. We provide technical assistance, industry-specific guidance, and access to our sales teams to help your startup grow. We partner with startups on specific engagements to help you open the door to customers that were previously unattainable. Whether you're working in the private sector or with the government, Microsoft can assist you on your journey. Veterans are some of the most resilient, capable, and adaptable people I've ever met. Each of you has a unique value set that you bring to the table that enables you to solve very difficult, challenging problems, often under extreme pressure and stress, with a positive attitude. Your experience makes you an asset to any team. Never, never underestimate your value. Today, you have the opportunity to listen and learn from a wonderful group of individuals on a variety of topics, including fundraising, legal issues, CMMC, and transitioning to a career in tech. Finally, you'll get to hear narratives from your fellow veterans on their individual paths to success. I hope you enjoyed today's event. We thank you so much for your time and participation. And most importantly, we thank you for your service to our country. Thank you, and happy Veterans Day.
Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate that. And most importantly, for your service and now Microsoft and their service today to help support these efforts. So let's start getting into the meat of what we're talking about today. I've said for years, people will be what they can see. And for veterans, whether they're in the service still, or whether or not they have already made the transition and maybe the job or the place that they're in isn't quite satisfying, they're always looking for an opportunity, or should be, I would hope, to do better in society, to do better for their family, to do better for their own personal or professional career. And in doing so, we're going to make mistakes along the way. But the best thing that you can do is learn from those who have made mistakes. So in terms of understanding how this all comes together, talent is the most important thing. Heidi said it. It's all about resiliency and knowing your worth. And so for me, I think the best example of that is looking at talent. When you start to build your teams, I'm confident the majority of your team is going to end up being veterans, at least higher than they are per capita in society, just as it was for Ride Scout when we were building our company. But specifically, what you have an opportunity to do is look for that talent. Because let's be honest, there is a talent war out there. Headhunters are even more in demand as we're trying to find people with the talents, skills, and attributes needed to be able to work well in the 21st century economy as a part of teams. And who does teams better than the military? So this next fireside chat, this interview, this discussion, you're going to love. Two of my favorite people, Sabrina Wattwitz, who I met years ago when we were looking to establish the bunker. And if you don't know the bunker, somebody drop it in chat so we make sure you have the opportunity. But the bunker was really helping to empower veterans that were trying to create their companies. But Sabrina and her husband, Jonathan, were a part of the early team here in Texas. And now what they're doing across the Southwest is amazing. But when you look at the work of Mike Sorelli and what he's doing with his new company, EF Overwatch, they're helping companies figure out, hey, don't be surprised by this mess of what looks like a giant monstrosity of bureaucracy, of VA, and all these programs. You got to find the talent, and Mike is helping people find it. Today is a particularly great day for Mike and the EF team. He's just launched his book, The Talent War. I've already got my copy of it. Hopefully you have your copy. You can download it, find it, somebody drop it in the links. But just like Josh said earlier, this platform is only as good as you use it today to draw out people, to draw out conversation. And yes, when you get to networking later on, we'll talk more about that. But with that, I want to turn it over to Sabrina, who's going to walk through a discussion with Mike about his work, his experiences, and what we can all learn from recognizing talent. Sabrina, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Joseph, for the introduction. And hi, Mike. Good to see you. Great to be with you. And thanks for being here today.
Sabrina, thanks for having me.
And happy birthday to you today and to all Marines.
245. One of the finest organizations in the land. I know your husband is Marine. For anyone that served in that service or the military in general, should be extremely proud of what they did.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to jump in to talk about role in tech after service, leadership traits of military community members, translating veterans' valuable experience into the startup world and the business community in general. So if we can, let's start with you, Mike. You're a founder, an entrepreneur, an author, which we'll discuss, and a highly trained, successfully transitioned military leader. Can you walk us through your journey of serving in the Marine Corps, being a Navy SEAL, what your transition was like, and how did the military, or maybe didn't, prepare you for what was next?
Absolutely. Successful may be a stretch that is yet to be determined. Give me another 20 years and we'll reconvene. But so, my transition, to put it like bluntly, I should say, just like every probably veteran will agree with me, it sucks. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It just sucks. It's like the ultimate identity, not crisis, but identity change, especially going from an organization that is such a tribe. You've got such a support mechanism, and then all of a sudden you get your DD-214 or you retire and you're waking up on your mom's, sofa saying what's next. It wasn't quite like that, but Sabrina, what I've been doing since I retired in March of 2018 is I've been working with a guy named Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I served with them in the SEALs, and we've been doing leadership consulting. And it's given me time to contextualize all the great things that the military taught me. And it started with the Marine Corps. And I proudly say that. Like a lot of people, SEALs identify with being a SEAL. I identify with being a Marine prior to joining the SEAL community. The Marine Corps laid the foundation. And then that's what made me successful in the SEAL teams. And I made it all the way to JSOC and retired as a lieutenant commander. But guys, at the end of the day, the military, without debate, is the world's greatest leadership development platform. If Fortune 500s, and it's not a question of money, if Fortune 500s had the domain expertise to replicate it, they would, but they can't. And that actually serves to your benefit when you get out. I'm telling you, you know how to lead. But as you transition out, it requires patience. Rome wasn't built in a day. And even if you get out as a lieutenant colonel, a commander, a sergeant major, and even though you have all this great experience, you are, to put it bluntly, an FNG. Again, I won't say what that acronym stands for. I know most of you know it. In a way, you're an FNG to a new industry. You know how to lead, but you got to give it time.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, you run a specialized military executive search firm. You place military leaders into senior level business positions. What impact has this year had on the military transition in particular? Are military leaders better positioned for success or struggling harder to win in a crowded unemployment market?
The answer is they are actually set up for success, and I'll get to that. And Sabrina, I've known you since I want to say 2016. EF Overwatch, which is the specialized military executive search firm, actually started out as an organization called Vetted. And you saw me fumble through this. The concept was sound. The business model was not. We were going for VA certifications. Even though we ran one cohort, which you guys were involved in, and the metrics were through the roof, ultimately that social enterprise, which my first venture was social entrepreneurship, failed. We failed to gain VA certifications for that program because I didn't know the political landscape in Texas. And I was devastated. Beyond devastated, I was embarrassed by everyone that I had involved because I don't like to fail. I hate failing. But when I finally took a knee and again sat down with Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, the co-authors of Extreme Ownership, and told them, hey, a lot of private sector leaders from the start had told me to make Vetted a for-profit venture. And out of altruism, I couldn't do it. But then I finally started to see, as I gained more experience in the business world, why they said that to me. Because our nation is based off a system of free enterprise, an exchange of value. And nonprofits don't exactly work off those same economics. And so, what started as a nonprofit became a for-profit. But back to your question. So, in fact, I just saw a New York Times or New York Post article about how a lot of businesses are hiring veterans right now at a more rapid rate because they're unflappable in VUCA environments. And if you guys forget, my military vets in here, what VUCA stands for, it's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Those were the environments we thrive in. Now, on the leadership consulting side through Echelon Front, which I'm a part of, we had our clients calling us when this COVID thing hit, and they were losing their minds. Even more so, their people were losing their minds. They couldn't deal with the lack of information, the lack of guidance. And for vets, we were just sort of like, yeah, business is normal.
We got this.
We got this. And this doesn't even it hails in comparison to what we faced in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other regions of the world. Guys, you're built for it. Again, you know how to do this in complex environments, in chaotic environments. You know how to remain calm and apply the leadership strategies and tactics you learned in the military. And ultimately, if you are a great military leader and you have the ability to take those leadership strategies and tactics and apply it to the private sector, you're going to crush it. Again, look at Joseph Kopser and Craig Cummings, two examples of guys that are phenomenal leaders in the military, switch over, and yeah, they went through their own transitions, but they're doing wonderfully and they continue to accelerate.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite people. Love Joseph. And I love working in this military community every day. It's just phenomenal, the amount of tenacity and leadership that military leaders have, and it's just a blessing to work through every day. So awesome. Well, taking a little bit of a switch over, you mentioned COVID, and we've seen a lot of change, pivots, in particular in 2020 due to the impact of COVID on small businesses and big companies alike. What are some interesting or relevant adaptations that you've seen this year relevant to the military connected business community?
Adaptations. That's a great question, and nothing strikes me off the top of mind. I will tell you this: you have to have a targeted focus when you leave. And veterans don't know whether you serve 20 years, 30 years, or only 4 years. Veterans don't know what they don't know. And a lot of us think we've got to go work for Google, or we got to go work for IBM, or we got to go work for Apple. That's what we're sort of conditioned to believe, because that's all we know about the private sector. As I refined my business model for EF Overwatch, of course, we're like, yeah, we'll go place veterans for the Fortune 500s as well. We won't do it anymore. And what we found was that the small to mid-sized businesses are a perfect place for veterans to land. And in fact, I can take senior military leaders, E7s to E9s, O3s and above, and put them in very senior positions. In fact, we're about to place an E9 coming out of JSOC into the CEO position of a $40 million top line company, fresh out of the military, because they recognized his leadership potential. You have to find companies that value what you bring to the table. You also have to be able to convey your value. And a lot of veterans are not good at that because we're so stuck on the we, which speaks volumes to your level of character. But your team, your old military team, is not interviewing for a position. You are. And when a lot of these vets step into the interviews, we have to break them in the habit of, we did this and we did this. No, I was a leader. We faced these problems. I made these decisions. I orientated my team, and these were the results that came out of what I, based off what I decided. And that's what I'm going to do for this company as well. But those small to mid-sized businesses, which, again, to define those for certain people, that could be as many as 1,000 employees or as high as $1 billion in revenue. Some of these companies are great environments and replicate more of a team environment than Fortune 500s. I'm not saying all Fortune 500s are bad. It's just you are stepping into a very structured, sort of bureaucratic system. If you love that about the military, then a Fortune 500 might be right for you. I will say, in terms of adaptations to the hiring market, there is a big push for AI. And AI just is not where it needs to be to be an effective tool in hiring. There's certain things you cannot replace. Even ATS systems, applicant tracking systems. Applicant tracking systems are great when you're dealing with a volume of resumes, but they are skipping and bypassing so much talent. I guarantee ATS systems pretty much probably boot every veteran that's fresh out of the military within about a year, because they lack industry experience for the roles that they're interviewing for. So in terms of technology, there's going to be an over-reliance on technology during the hiring process, but you've got to find a way to maneuver around it. Fortunately, for small to mid-sized businesses, it's usually easier to network into them and get just even an interview, and that's all you want. Just that one interview, and then it's on you once that door closes, like I said, to convey your value.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you could probably argue that in the small to medium-sized business category, military connected leaders could have a bigger and better sense of mission and be able to fulfill that mission without, like you said, the bureaucratic system of a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 200.
Sabrina, everyone talks a whole lot about, I just saw something called purpose-based transition, or a lot of people are talking about the why. I get it. I'm just telling for the vets that are fresh out, you're never going to find that sense of purpose or the why as you did in the military. It was so simple, guys. We stood for good. We were part of the team. At the end of the day, I would say keep an open aperture. Keep a very open aperture. What may not sound like a sexy business which I remember from a book called Buying a Small Business. It was a Harvard publication. Talked about a West Pointer that graduated his MBA and went and bought a window washing service in Dallas. You're talking about the high rises, and turned it from $1 million company into a multi-million-dollar company. If you ask that individual, that former military leader, if he was passionate about window washing, he'd probably say no, if he was being honest with you. It's the challenge. It's the challenge. Can I step into this startup environment with this young company and bring structure, the structure I know how to build around operations, and take it to the next level? Can I help increase their revenues? Whatever KPIs may motivate you, that's where you find your purpose. And the other thing too, if you want to build your why, become so freaking good at something, regardless if the passion's not there, that you become irreplaceable to that business. And I guarantee you will foster a sense of purpose when you become that good at something.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, so both Capital Factory and Bunker Labs have been focused on this for next topic for a number of years. It's part of what makes our partnership so invaluable, because we honestly haven't seen it done better than at Capital Factory. Can you talk a little bit about how important mentorship is for our military community?
It's everything. Guys, this is part of the networking. So the last statistic I saw, 85% of jobs are found through networking. And that's what mentorship is. It's both. So first off, is the military through the TAP systems, going to prepare you for a successful transition? The answer is no. And if you get angry at the military, I'm here to tell you, stop. The military has a purpose. That's going to war and defending our nation against evil. And in order to become or build a competency in transitioning soldiers, that takes away from that mission. And we don't want to be responsible for anyone losing their lives. You have to take ownership over your transition. Yes, you're going to go through TAPS, but I just spoke with a Marine F-18 pilot. He was prior enlisted, so Mustang, prior enlisted infantry to F-18 pilot. And he told me how he was trying to get into cyber. In one specific company, he sent out 500 cold emails, or cold calls, and got 80 meetings out of it. And from that 80 meetings, he eventually got a job, not at that company, but a smaller startup in cybersecurity. That's what it takes to secure a job. Your job is getting a job when you don't have a job. And if you focus it on it that way, get up at 4:30, you get your PT in, and then you're literally at 6:30. You're on the jobs board, you're making calls, you're trying to network, you're on LinkedIn, the most powerful tool for professionals. That's where you need to be. You live and own LinkedIn. And in fact, Joseph Kopser and I were talking about that the other day. We started something called Talent War Group, and Joseph's going to help with that. An amazing group of veteran military leaders that are going to help small to mid-sized business leaders through just mentorship. But the other thing I'll say, so I don't keep rambling, which I have a habit of doing, SEALs love to hear themselves talk, if not right.
We're good on time, I think so.
So, somebody told me, because there's a lot of military guys that get out and they're always complaining about these people don't know and these people don't know. You have to have a deep respect for what I call private sector warriors. And you don't want to be, you don't want mentorship from a veteran unless they've been in the industry for like 10 to 15 years. They actually know what they're talking about. Don't listen to that, that only has 2 years out. They're trying to figure it out like you. But find mentors that never served in the military, but are respected within their industries. And they will help you find a job, if not hire you. And good bosses, let's be honest, you again, it's not about the actual business industry or domain. You will go work for a good boss in a heartbeat. And Bill Campbell, I know we're going to talk about Bill Campbell was mine. The secret coach of Silicon Valley. I was fortunate because I grew up in Palo Alto and I knew him. Guy didn't serve a day in the military, yet was one of the most phenomenal and well-respected tech leaders, probably for the test of time.
Yeah. So, tell us about Bill. What about having a mentorship relationship with him is interesting.
So it goes back to the fact that I was born in Palo Alto, born in Stanford Hospital, grew up in Silicon Valley all my life until I enlisted the Marine Corps, which is very uncharacteristic of that area, and left on a infantry contract. And I really took for granted growing up in the 80s and the 90s in Silicon Valley, that was just sort of my normal. But looking back and the amount of innovation and the fact that Silicon Valley, without debate, is the most innovative area in the world, and continues to be. I met Bill Campbell when I was young. Again, I knew he was a leader of organizations. He was close with Steve Jobs. But, I wasn't that significant as a young teenager, if that's a good way to say it. I was, 119 pounds sopping wet, I think, when I left for the Marine Corps. And people sort of dismissed me because, I was the small kid. And then, as my career went on, Bill had heard, hey, he made it into Marine Recon. Hey, the Marines are sending him to become an officer. Hey, he made it into the SEALs. And then, hey, he made it to Naval Special Warfare Development Group, and we reconnected. And so Bill set up a trip in 2013 for 20 senior SEAL leaders. And so I was the trip lead. I set this all up, and I went out there, and he set up meetings with Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison brought us into his house, which is a pretty secluded guy. Tim Cook, Mark Benioff, Sergey Brin, Carol Bartz, who, the first female CEO of Yahoo, who's a pistol. And the list went on. Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz. And so we had private meetings between all these leaders and us 20 SEALs, and it was supposed to be a leadership exchange. I'm going to tell you, there was very little exchange. We were on receive mode the entire time. When you heard these people speak, you understand why they're where they're at in life, why they have the status that they have. These were remarkable leaders, all who never served a day in the military. And when we finished that meeting, Bill had let me use the upper room in the Old Pro, which was his bar back then. And we were supposed to have a 30-minute debrief after action from the 3 days of learning. We were there for 8 hours, whiteboards and all. And we made changes to Naval Special Warfare Development Group based off certain leadership strategies and tactics that they built. And we came away in awe of all my professional development trips in the military. Went to Normandy, went to Gettysburg, did the staff rides or battlefield reviews. That was by far the most transformative experience of my military career.
It's excellent. I think so many good nuggets there too. It's like, first of all, network, and I'd say probably go ahead and share with the audience right now. Like, connect with Mike, connect with myself on LinkedIn. Love to get anybody that's watching connected into new networks. And then, look, when you're looking for a mentor, it doesn't have to be like the top front and center rock star, but look for people that are respected in their community, in their industry. And your mentors will not only help you develop personally and professionally, but they have networks that they can connect you with as well. So that'll move you ages along.
Yeah, it's Sabrina. Funny enough, to that story. So there's I'm forgetting the name of the hotel. It's like the Rose Hotel on Sand Hill Road, which is the venture capital street of the world. And Sergey Brin opened a bar tab, which we ran up to like 15 grand. Don't ever do that for a bunch of military guys. But he was so impressed with these guys that he's like, dude, when you guys get out, call me. I want to hire you to lead my teams of engineers. And he was making light of them. And one of them actually kept up and got a job at Google afterwards. That wasn't my path, but yeah, 5 years later, after conducting that trip, that guy got a job.
That's fantastic. Well, let's talk about some resources for our community. And I definitely want to shamelessly start with The Talent War, the book you're releasing today. What is it about, and why should our community pick it up?
So The Talent War, really, how this started was one with EF Overwatch. I'm so passionate. I'm fascinated with how you build elite teams and how you create this culture that just secures victory. And there's both good examples in the private sector, but as a whole, the military is a great example, even more so special operations. So the name of the book is The Talent War, how special operations and great organizations win on talent. And as I was doing EF Overwatch and getting more experience, my managing partner is a guy named George Randall, Army Mustang from the 80s and 90s. He's been in talent acquisition for over 20 years. Stood up the veteran hiring program at HP alongside Tracy Keogh, who's one of the most amazing CHROs in the world. Booz Allen Hamilton, as well as KPMG before it was bought by Deloitte. So this guy has massive experience. And so many companies are so bad at hiring. The reason they're bad is they lack a total talent mindset. In 2019, of 1,500 CEOs and other C-suite executives polled, it was by the conference board, the overwhelming majority of leaders cited that their number one problem was the ability to attract, hire, develop, and retain top talent. It's the number one concern of all leaders. This war for talent has been raging since the beginning of time, and guess what? It's never going to end. People are your biggest strategic competitive advantage. It's the only strategic competitive advantage you can ever achieve and hold. And a lot of organizations lack this talent mindset. Yes. What's the standard byline? If a CEO is being interviewed, he says, we put a precedence on people. People are our most important thing. But if you watch them for a few days, weeks, months, their actions, their behaviors don't reflect their words. Netflix, a non-military example, is a perfect example. I mean, the culture deck that Patty McCord built with Reed Hastings has defined Netflix and the culture that they have. There's a reason that Google spends 2 times to 3 times more than their competitors on talent. They understand if you get the best people in, you field the best ball team, and then you lead that team well, you're going to decimate your competition. In the special operations community, when you look at it, has the longest behavioral interview process in the world. It's the most robust behavioral interview process, in fact. And they've been evolving this assessment and selection process for over half a century. And guess what? It's still evolving. It never ends. And they've made a lot of mistakes. But as a whole, there's a reason that businesses are so fascinated with special operations. It's that they've built these small teams that go against numerically superior forces and constantly win, driving strategic outcomes. That's what every business wants. They just don't know how to do it. And so this book is a transferable blueprint of how special operations utilizes best practices, mindsets, and gives it to the business world in what we think was a fun way. It wasn't a SEAL telling SEAL stories. It's not about me. We talked a lot about our mistakes, and strategically, if there's any Green Berets in the audience, I started the book out about the 5th Special Forces Group, the horse soldiers that went in small groups in Afghanistan against a much bigger force and totally dominated the situation. In fact, funny enough, I placed more Army Special Forces soldiers than I do Navy SEALs.
That's definitely interesting. Well, I look forward to picking it up and adding it to my library along with Joseph's Catalyst. And my own founder of Bunker Labs has also recently published The Third Shift Entrepreneur. So one resource and hack is get your reading in, pick up your books, and never stop learning through the power of the written word.
And we've already hit bestseller in pre-sales, in business consulting, organizational change, and a few other categories on Amazon. So we're really anticipating a big launch today. And hey, at the end of the day, I don't care how many books I sell. It's the impact. If I can impact, just a few small to mid-sized businesses and change the way they look at talent and develop it, win. Absolutely.
Well, I'll shamelessly plug Capital Factory's rich military-friendly community as well as Bunker Labs. So our national nonprofit entrepreneurship support organization aims to inspire, equip, and connect the military community with resources and networks critical to success as entrepreneurs. You can learn more about Bunker Labs by registering for our digital community at bunkeronline.org and visit our website at bunkerlabs.org. What other resources, particularly maybe for veterans in tech, Mike, any come to mind?
So I did the Stanford Ignite. I thought that was an exceptional program. And a lot of vets ask me, what program should I do? Do all of them. Do as many as you can. You'll take a few nuggets from each of them. And Breakline, led by Bethany Coates, a strong leader. Big fan of Bethany Coates. Those two really stick out in terms of tech and what you guys are doing with Bunker Labs and the Capital Factory. is amazing. Big fan of Todd Connor. When I got to meet him, it was like I was like a school kid in a candy shop. I think he had to calm me down.
Yeah, he's doing great with the launch of the Third Shift Entrepreneur, which is teaching the military community how to keep your day job while building your dream job. And so we're excited about that. And then our new CEO, Blake Hogan, he's my good friend and a Marine as well. So Todd's focusing on the book and Blake's running the organization. So it's been a lot of fun. Well, I think we'll take a few audience questions if that's okay with you. We have a few more minutes. So I have one here. Veterans have amazing stories about their military accomplishments, but since they aren't usually business-related ones, how can they best be described during a job interview in a way that they translate as well as should be deserved?
So you're going to get out of an interview what you put into it. So the ability to translate really comes down to the level of preparation that you put into that interview for that company. Guys, you wouldn't step outside the wire to go conduct a direct action raid to capture, kill a really bad guy without doing your due diligence. And what we see a lot of veterans is, one, they're like, oh, I've been on murder boards in the military with a bunch of E9s grilling me, I'll nail this. And those people that go in end up failing. The best veterans, and we have a process in EF Overwatch that we won't put you in front of a client unless you've shown us the due diligence. The best veterans that I've seen that knock their first interview out of the park, one, they have their wives or their husbands helping them with the 15 most common questions to nail it. We don't want you to rehearse it. We want you to sound genuine, but you don't fall you don't fall victim to any random questions. Guys, ultimately, when you step in front of a company, you better know as much about that company as possible. That's a given. But you're not being interviewed for how much you know about that company. What you're being interviewed for is how well you know yourself, and that's what you have to demonstrate. Right down to a common question. Tell us about your biggest weakness. And a lot of veterans get that wrong. You have to show that you are a master in yourself, both your strengths and your weaknesses, that you have a strong personal inventory of who you are, how you lead, and how that will bring value to the organization. Again, what's your biggest weakness? You know what? A lot of veterans, first off, think that's time for a confessional. Well, if I've got a biggest problem, it's I think that I drink too much on the weekend. No. When you hear a question like that, and it comes down, again, preparation, interviewing is an art. When I hear what's my biggest weakness, I hear what's my biggest opportunity for growth. And that's how I tackle that question. If they ask you how you fail, and we hear this all the time, I've never failed in the military. Yes, you failed. One, that is a total lack of humility if you can't express a failure. But the guys that fail and the men and women that fail on those questions, it just comes down to a total lack of preparation, guys, and knowing yourself. Before you start a search, don't just get on the jobs board and start looking. Define success. That's where veterans fail. You have to sit down with your husband or your wife, because if you're married, they're part of the decision-making process, and say, what does the end of this look like? What do we define as success? Is it location? Is it salary? Is it job title? Is it opportunity growth? Then you start the process. And the next part is what I call know thyself. So after you've defined success, you have to know thyself. And that's where you have to start taking these personal assessments. You got to look deep. You got to start contextualizing what you learned in the military and research industries and different functions and roles. And then once you think you know what you want to do, it goes back to what Sabrina said. You start networking and talking to people in those functions, those roles, those industries to see if it's something that truly could build into a passion.
Yes, that's an excellent answer. So many things there. Take notes, everyone. Okay, next audience question. Will working with defense limit my commercial work? Do they take the IP if I get money from them?
So if working for defense, you mean after you exit the military, you went in as a defense contractor?
I think it's referring to if I'm building a startup and I want to work with AFWorks or the defense, DoD, will they take IP if I'm getting money from them to develop products or services?
You know what? I'll be honest, guys. I don't have the answer to that. I know I will say this from a different perspective. If you exit the military and go into defense contracting or take a GS position and then want to leave that and enter into the private sector, yes, you are setting up a tougher road for yourself. I've got a lot of great E9s, E8s who are amazing individuals that went into defense contracting or GS positions for 8 years, and then they come out and they want to get into the private sector, and it's very difficult. As for IP, I would get a legal review on that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure what the policies are for AFWorks and the rest of those organizations.
Yes, I'm sure we can get some answers. We have some great partners from AFWorks. So if you ask that question, send me a personal note through LinkedIn, and we'll get it answered for you. In your opinion, what was the most difficult part about transitioning, and if so, to tech? How did you overcome the obstacles?
The biggest, most difficult part was patience. I'm not a patient person, because I'd come off the battlefield of being a strike force commander, leading, and I can see almost instantaneous results from the operations that we conducted. And what's disturbing is, vet, especially if you get out with 18 to 20 years, is you're looking at your peers, maybe guys that got commissioned with you back in the day or went through boot camp, and they've been out for 5, 6, 7 years. And all of a sudden you're sort of comparing your journey to theirs. Chris Fussell, who penned the book, Team of Teams, I was talking to him about this the other day. They're already on this curve in the private sector. And what we see a lot of veterans come out and do, trying to catch up with them, is they'll enter into a company, they'll start to climb, but they won't climb quick enough. They'll leave that job, dip again, start climbing in the next company. They're not moving quick enough, again, leave that company, and they just get in this repetitive pattern rather than being patient and utilizing the great leadership strategies and tactics you learned in the military. You will eventually reach their level, if not exceed past them, based off the leadership experience that you bring to the table. So you've got to be patient, guys, especially with startups. What is it? Most businesses aren't profitable for the first 5 years. Yeah. It's excruciating. I keep putting my money back into EF Overwatch because one of the keynote speaker and a leadership consultant. I've got money coming in from that side. Of course, EF Overwatch is 3 years old, and I want to take an owner's draw, but I'm being patient, putting the money back into infrastructure for the long-term, sort of a strategic view, is the right call. And I'll end with this. When you approach your transition, be strategically minded, not tactical, and it will serve you better in the long run.
Excellent piece of advice. Absolutely. Well, I think we're just about at time, and I'm sure there's been a wealth of knowledge. I've learned so many great things from you, Mike, and I hope the audience has as well. I guess if the next step is you're open to people connecting with you on LinkedIn, so do that. Any other parting words or ideas for our audience?
Guys, through EF Overwatch, we run a lot of training for vets. Again, not me, it's George Randall and an Air Force veteran named Carly Walden, who she's been out for 7 years in talent acquisition. And quite frankly, she's taken president CEO of my position because she knows the industry better than me. That's not a hit to my ego, but they run training every Friday. Even if you don't want us to place you, it's some of the best search training that I've ever seen, hence why I brought them on, and that's been the reviews. But if there's anything I can do for you, if there are connections I can make, we have to support each other. And instead, nobody hates a veteran's success like other veterans. I don't know why that is. It blows my mind. I want to see each of you be successful so that you can hire me 20 years from now when my company goes under. We have a solemn duty to live up to the name of veteran. That is a title that should not be taken lightly. And I think as a whole, veterans in this nation, we're not doing a great job right now. But ultimately, even though we've taken the uniform on, we're still the best recruitment tool for the military to show young men and women that may work for us, during internships in college, be like, wow, where did you learn to lead? And I'd say I was in the Marine Corps. And it's a great place to go if you want to go become an officer or enlisted and learn how to lead and then come back into the private sector. We are the best recruiting tool, and we have to remember that, and we have to live up to that name.
Absolutely. We like to talk about how we want to build the next great generation of entrepreneurs, but we want that path, like for military service, to be seen as the quickest, best opportunity for that.
Sabrina, let me say this, and this mindset shift may help veterans. It helped me. Guys like Joseph Kopser and Craig Cummings, I saw them engaging in free enterprise. In fact, Joseph, and I've stolen this from him, and I'm sure I'll hear from his lawyers, joking. He said, hey, we defended free enterprise with our lives. And now it's our opportunity to participate in it. Guys, you take your uniform off and you lose your sense of purpose. I did. I get it. Here's another sense of purpose. The greatest power in this nation is not the U.S. military. Even though it's pretty damn impressive, and what we did in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan was total shock and awe, and it shocked the world. The strongest weapon in this nation is the U.S. economy. Our job now as veterans is to continue leading out of uniform and continue growing that economy. If we do that well, we're setting up the next generation of military for success. And if you truly, once you truly believe that, you've got your purpose.
Absolutely. Excellent ending point. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and sharing your knowledge, skills, and talents with the entrepreneur community. Don't forget to pick up Mike's book, The Talent War, and we'll see you around, definitely.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is that great or what? I don't even know where to begin with so much of that discussion. That Sabrina, you led it wonderfully. And Mike, the honesty, really the raw aspect of sharing your experience is what makes us all better as veterans. There was so much in there to unpack, from the idea of mentorship, and it's our responsibility to kind of take them to the next level. Whether it's looking at this idea of we do better as a team going forward, no matter what angle you look at, there's so much in that interview. So if you, and I haven't even talked with the Capital Factory production crew, but I'm going to hope that we make that interview live and evergreen later on for people to take a look at. So I'm going to do a couple of things. One is I'm looking down here at the screen with the production team. Rebecca, keep me on time. I know at 1 o'clock, we're going to be kicking off the next panel, which I'll introduce in a few minutes. But because we have this technology, because we're live, because we're in chat, and I can see there Kyle and Matthew and Damon and Monica and Brian, I can see you all here. Let me know some of your thoughts about what your frustrations are, because again, if we're not communicating what is most important to you or addressing them, then we're not doing our part. One thing that I'm going to talk about is the fact that we as a community have never used LinkedIn well, and we're falling behind our peers that realize that in the COVID world, you've got to get on LinkedIn. That's where it is that you're promoting your opportunity, your product, your service, whatever it happens to be. Darren, I agree. That was awesome. So let's talk for a second about the way LinkedIn works and how we'll be using it forward. So the funniest thing I like to tell people about LinkedIn is LinkedIn doesn't like links. They don't like links to other things. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but when you're posting in LinkedIn, make sure you take a photo or a video and then upload it. Because as soon as you go into LinkedIn and you link them to a great Medium post you did or your company's opportunities, you send them out of LinkedIn, and LinkedIn does not like that. And they punish your algorithm, or the algorithm punishes your post, meaning that fewer people see it. So when you are posting in LinkedIn, make sure that you are keeping the content inside. The second thing is tag names, tag the names of people, tag the names of businesses, keep eyeballs inside of your posts. And when you want to start letting other people know that you're a thought leader or an expert or you have interest, share your ideas, get into their post. You know, this isn't like getting into their direct message or sliding into their DM. This is you getting on their post publicly and making comments. That's what you need to be doing. We're not using LinkedIn well enough. But let's go back to a couple of things that Mike said, though, before we get to the top of the hour. This notion of, and he kind of addressed it, the fact that people don't really understand veterans, whether we serve for 2 years, 20 years, or 40 years. You really got to wash that out of your expectations that, well, I'm a veteran, I've got a Bronze Star, I served here, there. That's not necessarily going to cut it. What you got to understand is that to them, a sergeant is very similar to a sergeant major. A lieutenant is not a lot different than a lieutenant general. They just see public service or military service as kind of all the same. It's your responsibility to tell the difference. So let's talk about now why I've got this different background. I have a different role and responsibility that for me is very much a dream job. The University of Texas is a world-class partner and destination for our military, veterans, and their families. And with your help, I want to help tell that story. So President Hartzell has me now working on all kinds of programs that make sure that we take existing efforts, tie them together a little bit better, and then add to it new opportunities. So if there's something you want to be doing with the University of Texas, let me know. All right, I'm going to check the content here. Brandon Mullen, thanks for all that. Sabrina, thanks for putting my post in there. Monica, yep, veterans and residents cohort. It was a good time. Bunker's doing great work. And let's see here. Time-wise, we've got 4 minutes. So one of the things I want to dig down into, in addition to talking about LinkedIn, is being a little more specific about how posts are working. It is actually more effective when you put a post on there that is short and sweet, but inside that post, not just in the comments, but inside that post, tag the names of people in there. I would caution you against going too far and adding too many names just for the sake of throwing names in there. But if you have, for instance, an agenda, if you have a list of people to thank, by all means, but what you want to do is make that post seem just as if you are talking. And then another part of LinkedIn that I think it's unused, and maybe people just don't realize it's there, is in the upper right-hand corner of LinkedIn. It's the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, I admit it costs money. It costs, I don't know, maybe the last time I looked, I think it was $100 a month or something. You decide whether it fits in your budget. But inside of doing that, what you can do is put the names of companies, competitors, and partners, the names of people. You can use it to search for individuals at working companies of 5 to 50 people or companies of larger than 10,000. You can search for specific people in specific job descriptions like VP of tech or VP of marketing, whatever it is that you're looking for. Use the tools of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. 10 years ago when Craig and I were starting Ride Scout, it was literally Excel spreadsheets and Outlook contact lists. CRM tools, contact resource management tools, were only in the very beginning. You have so many tools ahead of you or at your opportunity for you to be able to use that I really encourage you to take a look at, use those tools. And of course, the Capital Factory community and what they're doing on Slack and able to keep people talking as much out of email as possible, but keeping it in Slack is a big help. And then of course, there's platforms like Hopin, and we'll get into networking later on today to talk about how the networking feature works on this platform. It's a lot of fun. So do a time check. Okay, so we're 2 minutes out. What questions, if any, do you all have? Throw them in here. I'm scrolling back. And of course, there's a 17-second delay between when I'm talking live and when you're posting and I can see it. But we're going to work on it. Damn, the University of Texas looks good today. By the way, that's not the real weather. It's kind of dark. Okay. Scrolling down to the bottom. See a lot of friends and faces I recognize. Okay, Rebecca is telling me we are ready for the fundraising panel. Here's why this is so important. Everybody just thinks or expects that they take their great idea, their left-handed football bat, whatever dream they have, and all they got to do is do a great business plan, and then they're going to go out and find money. It is not at all the case. In fact, I don't want to steal any of their thunder, but if you as veterans don't have thick skins and get used to being told no, you're going to have a very rough road on this fundraising trail. Luckily, I'm married with 3 daughters, and so I've heard the word no, and you're a terrible person a lot. So I developed very thick skin to be in those board meetings, to be told what I'm doing wrong. So let me go ahead and pull up the next set of speakers. It's going to be Craig Cummings. Craig Cummings, Angie, and Cliff are going to walk us through understanding. Coming up now? You guys coming? Craig, is that you? Talk to me.
It's me, Joseph.
All right. I'm turning it, sir, over to you, or in this case, let's see. I'm handing it over to you. Take the ball. You see how I did that? That was clever. Now run with it. Do great things. Yeah, it's backwards. We got to do it up and down. Clifton, Angie, or Nita, excuse me. I said Angie. I apologize. If I'm not wearing my glasses, then it's no good. But Craig, take it away. Look forward to listening to the discussion. And stay in chat, folks. You're dropping great links. Keep it in there.
Thank you, Joseph. Man, I'm all fired up. I mean, between Joseph and Mike, I don't know. I think I'm going to go run like a marathon, and I've never run one before. today. Joseph is awesome. A lot of good memories there. Mike, great job as well. So now we turn to the topic of fundraising, and it's an important one for all of us. Literally all of us. I can speak for myself. I can speak for Anita. Cliff, not so much, but it's in his world that he's accepting a lot of pitches on the fundraising side, and I know for a lot of you. So let's kick this off. We're going to start. I'm going to have our panelists Anita and Cliff introduce themselves. I'll close out, and then we have some questions, and then we'll open it up and try to make this as interactive as possible. With that, Anita, please give us your elevator pitch introduction. Please tell us about yourself and Silicon Hills.
Absolutely. Well, I am a retired lieutenant colonel, Afghanistan veteran, and entrepreneur. So I'm pretty excited to be here. So thank you guys for asking me to be here. I'm real excited. And so what I do, like I said, right before I retired, I started a company because outside of what I've been doing, of course. And so I started a media company while I was still in, and within 3 years of me starting the company, I was bought out. And so it was a really interesting, time for me because, coming from the military, coming from service, having someone tell you that what you have is valuable and they want to pay you money for it was pretty cool. So got real smart, real fast on entrepreneurship. And so, like I said, sold that company, started another one. I have been working a lot in the Black business, trying to help uplift African Americans in our community. And so I have a company, Black Business Journal. We support African American businesses, trying to help them get more market share, helping them to build their businesses out. So with COVID coming through, we did a lot of fundraising for Black businesses to help them get capital. And so transitioned me into this role that I'm currently in, which is managing director of Silicon Hills Capital. And we are a venture capital fund, and we invest in women founders seeking up to $1 million in capital. And the goal is really to bridge the gap to venture capital for women so that they can build scalable companies. Because right now, venture capital, 98% of the money goes to men that look like Craig. So we're trying to change that. We want women and people of color to get some of that funding, and so that's why I'm here. Oh, one more thing. Go Army! Go Army!
Well, I'm effectively surrounded. I'm a Navy guy here, but I don't mind North Hudson. Just our buddies here. So, yeah, Cliff Colbert. Naval Academy surface warfare officer, transitioned off of active duty to JP Morgan, as well as the reserve component. And my transition to the reserves involved me going to a group called DIU, which is the Defense Innovation Unit, venture capital group that sits within the Pentagon, accelerating commercial technology for the Department of Defense use cases. And through that, I've always been on the technology coverage side at JP Morgan. And so JP Morgan specifically is focused on what we call our technology and disruptive commerce practice, which are technology companies, as you would know it, software, IoT, automation, robotics, et cetera. But then also disruptive commerce are venture capital backed early stage, tend to be direct to consumer e-commerce, digitally native brands that we've done business with so far. So, you think of like a Peloton or Allbirds or, Mizzen Maine, Oak and Eden, shameless plug on great whiskey there. But yeah, our goal is to partner with people earlier in the life cycle as they're raising capital to get them on our platform sooner than later. When you think of banking, and aside from just the balance sheet lending that banks provide, which I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, is not as straightforward as some might think in a startup scenario. The ancillary partnerships become really important, right? And you can have a good relationship with the good banker, and that's important as well. I don't want to dilute that, but the platform that you have access to is immensely important, depending on where your goals are. So whether that means you're doing equity private placement or M&A activity, or going public someday, the platform that you're on and the introductions that can be made and the connectivity that can happen, and really the fleshing out of the processes on the tactical blocking and tackling part of banking become really important as you look at synergies and multiples on the back end. And so that's things that we kind of help owners and C-suite CFOs think about earlier than probably what they normally would. Is what does it mean to open an account in China? How do you partner with people in the UK, or how are your receivables coming into your accounts, and how can we leverage that into value added, so that when it comes time for a tuck-in acquisition or a liquidity event, it makes sense for the person that's buying you and you're meeting that industry standard. So those are some of the things that we think about, and happy to be here with the panel.
Thanks, Cliff. I'm glad we can be friends 364 days a year. And in case you can't see the jersey.
Yeah. Yeah, we got it.
All right. So I am Craig Cummings. I'm based in, you guessed it, Austin, Texas. And I've been partners with Joseph Kopser, if you may have heard him in Ride Scout. That's what brought me to Austin, Texas. And I've been investing with Kelly Purdue, another Army veteran based in Los Angeles. And we have a VC firm called Moonshots Capital. We're kind of known as vets backing vets. You don't have to be a veteran, but we over-index on veterans because we were military veteran entrepreneurs, and we've backed a lot of military veterans over time. So it's great to have you all here today, and let's try to make this as high value as possible. So, here we are coming into 8 months of COVID, March to. And, I want to talk a little bit about deal flow. And what prompted this a little bit was Joseph saying you need thick skin because you're going to be told no a lot. And I can definitely validate that comment. But I just want to talk about trends that you're seeing on the deal flow side. And Anita, I know you're still a little bit early in Silicon Hills, but you're raising for your fund. I said that, not you, since I don't think you're allowed to say that. But anyway, what have you seen over deal flow? Has it normalized? Is it more? Is it less? And then Anita, you can take that first, and then Cliff, would love to see your thoughts. Hear your thoughts. Thanks. We got you muted, or you're muted, Anita.
Oh, I think she had to unmute me. Okay, so entrepreneurship. What's been happening? What's happening with founders? Well, entrepreneurship is vital to our, is vital to job creation, and so I don't believe that our community, especially African American community, can survive without entrepreneurship. To me, that's the pathway to wealth and to wealth equity. And so what I've seen over this last year is, people are still building their companies. People are still working hard. We're seeing a lot of new tech companies. A lot of African American companies specifically are moving to a tech model. Because it seems like in this game right now, if you're not online, if you're not doing work digitally, you're not going to survive this, past COVID. So we've been working, on the other side of the other business that I do in accelerating businesses. We've been working to get businesses up and running on platforms so that they can do work online like this, as opposed to in person, because that's something that's that's not a big. Not what's happening right now, but companies are still being funded. Companies are still being created. Companies are. To me, this is the time when opportunities happen, because people are looking for different ways to get out of this mess that we're in. So the creativity is growing. The businesses that we've seen are incredible. We're still looking for new companies. So of course, we're looking for founders who've got some great ideas. So we're definitely seeing an uptick, I guess, of entrepreneurship.
Awesome, Anita. How about you, Cliff?
Yeah, I kind of take it from two types of deals from a hat perspective. So on the bank side, we've certainly seen an acceleration in digitally native technology that supports remote access, right? So companies that had things in the pipeline to support either cyber or software that is helping people do their work remotely are doing extremely well. I've also seen an uptick in payments. So whether companies are software companies that are trying to monetize payments, there's been a lot of technology that's come forth in the last 6 to 18 months around how to do that, whether it's credit card strategies or real-time payments or same-day ACH, just adding value into the payments flow, because that's also, when you think about your working capital cycle, your payments is really important to, kind of get some of those early wins on just being able to finance and keep the business running kind of early on. And then on the DIU side, the AI and machine learning portfolio has really been busy on fielding projects for the department. Human systems had some good work early on with COVID on fielding some wearable technology to help with the response and some of the PPE that's being distributed. And then the energy portfolio is something that's you'll see in 2021, and pretty bullish on that front as well. And some of the things that'll come from just not just renewable energies from a creation of the energy industry, but how do we interact with material science as well as in the supply chain for rare earth materials being one, and then smart EV kind of going forward in the base of the future. So that's all been really exciting to see those ideas and funding dollars and companies still coming to fruition, as well as on the tactical side at the bank with some of the improvements in the payments as well as remote technology support.
That's great. I think I'd echo both of you. We saw sort of a slowdown March, April, and then May it started to pick back up, and deal flow is as vibrant as ever. To the business of saying no, I remind founders that we see about 1,500 deals a year, and we'll invest in about 5.
Right.
So it is true what Joseph says about you getting used to saying to hearing the word no. And honestly, in raising a venture capital fund, I'm in the business of hearing no.
Yeah.
In fact, I've even said it's harder to raise a VC fund in the sense that as a founder, you can point to your product and say, what do you think of these AirPods? They're pretty amazing, right? And in raising a fund, you're saying, hey, trust me, we got this. So anyway, it takes a little time, and so it's a grind on both sides of the table. So let's talk a little bit about non-traditional founders, Anita. And I know that's what you're focused on.
Yeah.
Black, brown founders, women founders, and then I also put into that bucket the veteran as a non-traditional founder.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes they're first-time founders,
Right.
like Joseph Kopser was when he did Ride Scout. How do you think about first-time founders, non-traditional founders, and the risk associated with them?
Well, according to the stats, 45% of veterans start their own businesses, and I think it's just we kind of get tired of the government, and so we're like, okay, what can we do that we never have to go back to government work, right? So it seems like entrepreneurship is really big with veterans, and but the other big thing is veterans hire veterans, right? So my partner, she's a retired lieutenant colonel. A lot of the folks that we work with are we're here in Austin, so we're close to Killeen. So a lot of folks that I worked with in the military are here. So they're just providing different skill set. But I think for me, what was really difficult for me when I first became an entrepreneur was that, I was I came to Austin because of the military, and I had no network. I had no family. I had no friends, pretty much, because everybody that I knew was in the military, and, I go to work, I come home. And so when you get out, you're kind of like out there on your own. you don't really have the network that everybody else has who's been working in this, every day. So that was difficult for me in trying to get my bearings and recognize that, there's nobody coming to help me and save me. I tell people now, as an entrepreneur, when I worked, I always had a budget, when in the military, I always had a budget. We do media, we did, television, radio, because I did public relations. So now what I do is, I have to create my own budget. I have to find the funds, right, to do business. And so that was difficult for me as well, trying to navigate this, this new place that, the civilian world, that, even though we were in it, we just were not, we didn't have access, to a lot of the stuff. So to me, it was like, I was back at that crawl, walk, run stage, right? I was crawling again. I had to start research. I had to, to go to different events, go to different organizations, make new friends, make new, garner new networks. So you really have to hustle, honestly, because it's not going to be given to you, but it's out there. I feel very lucky. I mean, I came here to Austin, like I said, and knew nobody. And here I am, years later, I wrote 2 books and featured over 400 African Americans in Austin. So now people called me and asked me about people here in Austin. So to me, that just shows you what we can do, because, military vets, I mean, if we set a mission, we will not fail. We're going to find a way to make it work. And so I'm really encouraged, and I love to work with veterans. And I think that more entrepreneurs, especially veteran entrepreneurs, hire more veteran entrepreneurs. So it's better. It's good for our ecosystem.
No, that's exactly right, Anita. We say at Moonshots that the best way we can help the military veteran community is by building wealth inside of it, and then lifting all the boats. There's a nod to you, Cliff. All the boats. Cliff, what do you see on the? Are you seeing more Black, brown women founders recently?
Yeah. When I think of entrepreneurs, I think of, I think there's a couple different buckets of entrepreneurs. And I think what we're finding is, when I think about the entrepreneur, I think also about the end market that they are selling into or trying to add value to. And the consumer has changed, over the last, 5 to 10 years. And, I think as minority consumption, whether that be within veterans or within ethnic or gender, I think that it provides an avenue to understand the end customer better, to have diverse entrepreneurs and founders. And so I think, with the social topics that are current in today's environment, I think you're seeing a lot of institutionals lean in on Black and Latinx founders as well as women founders. A lot of capital is being generated to support those efforts, both socially from community housing to also how do we partner and develop these entrepreneurs in their own industries in a way that's adding value to them and the end industry as well. And so I think about the other bucket of entrepreneurs that are competing against other entrepreneurs that already exist doing something they're trying to do right. And that's kind of where I double down on what Anita was talking about, where my money goes on the veteran every time, as far as coming up to speed and adding resources and paying it forward to other veterans to continue to grow that impact and then develop that story differently than maybe what a competitor would develop it. I think that's just kind of 2 crucial points that I see kind of on the entrepreneur side.
Yeah, that's great, Cliff. On this point, our North Star has always been the military veteran. Our tagline is "We back extraordinary leadership," and of course, a lot of that leadership comes out of the military. But as we wrapped up our Fund 1 and we looked at our numbers, we had 36% of our companies had a military veteran on the team, 36% had a Black or brown founder, 21% had a woman as a CEO, co-founder. We had 1 disabled as well. And so we weren't deliberate on that sort of non-traditional blend.
Right.
But I think what we found is that what we see in the military veteran, that cannot fail, that coachable, that work ethic, and everything they had to overcome just to get in the room with us for the veteran is what we see in all the non-traditional founders. So, you know, we're not like Anita's saying we are a non-traditional focused fund, obviously heavy on the military veteran, but we really like the DNA. I'll say that. Not that, you know, not that we're going to pass on a, you know, a white male coming out of Stanford with the next Uber,
Right.
but we know the grit of the non-traditional, right? And I know that's why, you know, we're all here today. So I want to take a minute and say, please start to load up questions in the chat. We're going to move there pretty quickly and make this as helpful for all of you as possible. So, you know, fundraising is hard in a virtual world, right? I mean, how do you build these relationships with investors? And so let's just go around a little bit and talk about, you know, what you're seeing, what you would recommend in building a relationship with you, and Cliff, to the extent your best practices on in either hat, JP Morgan, DIU, how to start to build that relationship with you toward, of course, the ultimate goal, which is to raise money to get investment.
Yep.
Anita?
Oh, sure. So how do I build networks with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, how would you coach our veterans here today to start to build relationships with investors? How do they do that?
So I would say that is one of the issues that women and people of color have, is that, you know, we have great ideas, we have great products, and we're making money. However, it's that being able to talk the same language that VCs, that, you know, venture capitalists are talking. And so which is why my company has also created an accelerator, because we're trying to do just that. Because, you know, of course, we're investing in entrepreneurs, but we also want these entrepreneurs to get further along, right? And so in order to do that, you know, they have to be able to talk the talk, right? They have to know what it is that VCs are looking for. And a lot of times it is the founder. You know, I know when I'm looking for a company to invest in, it's not just the company, it's also the founder. It is primarily the founder, right? Because, you know, this is a relationship that I'm going to have for a few years. So I want to, you know, it's great to have somebody like a veteran, like someone who looks like me, or, you know, or a Latinx, because, you know, we build communities. So when women, and that's why I focus primarily on women, it's because, you know, you give a man a fish, he'll teach, you know, you'll fish for a day or whatever. But if you give a woman, you know, a fish, she's going to feed her village, right? And so, so that's why for me, it's important to really educate. I think it's about education. It's about getting in these accelerators, these programs that are, and there's tons of them here in, you know, especially in Austin area. There's a ton of accelerators that are out there, and you know, resources. You got to take advantage of the resources, the training, the coaching, but it is really about, you know, just really connecting, you know, with people. And if you're able to, you know, not just tell people about your business, but you want to also tell people about who you are, because again, you know, we're investing in the founder more so than the company, honestly.
It's great, Anita. Totally agree with you.
Yeah,
Cliff,
and just kind of build on
yeah.
that. Yeah, I think these interactions happen before most people realize, because, you know, venture capital is so social. I mean, I think about our relationship began with your dog licking me to death on your couch, and I wasn't asking for money or anything, right? But, you know, that's the beginning of our relationship.
I should tell him you're here.
It's great. It was a great experience. But I say that to say is that, you know, I didn't have an ask for Craig at that time. You know, it was social, and I think so much of the equity part of funding is social. You know, until you get up into that institutional level, you know, debt obviously has, you know, more of a rigorous cadence to it. You know, think of, like I was explaining, like, you know, a mortgage, right? You know, you can't buy a house with a mortgage if you can't pay your monthly bill, or you don't have the money to put down, right? So, you know, debt is you should think about that way. But equity is more about the story and how the founder and the team are going to develop. And like I said, I think the more that you can socialize amongst the venture capital community, the better. Because I think what Craig mentioned earlier was a really important point. They look at 1,500 companies, but only invest in 5. So you look at companies, 6 through 15, they also got invested, but just from somebody else. And so that's important for them. They weren't just talking to Craig, they were talking to other people, just like Craig was screening 1,500 companies. So I think the social nature of funding, I think, gets lost. And, I think what the current environment has done is, I think it's separated those who had strong social networks that they could leverage, especially in the earlier stage funding rounds, to get to know people and have others in the ecosystem vouch for them to get those early stage traction. I think on the later stage B and C rounds, those relationships are kind of already there and established on performance and KPIs and things like that. So I think we've seen funding in the overall industry continue to accelerate on that front, but it slowed down, I think, a little bit on the startup front. Is kind of just now getting back into the swing in Q3, and I think it'll continue to accelerate in Q4. Primarily because there's a lot of capital that needs to be deployed, but the social nature of people interacting and advocating for each other virtually, I think, is what we're seeing now in this current environment.
Yeah, building a relationship is so key, Cliff. And I often tell our portfolio CEOs that our investments are often made after having relationships for months, sometimes years. If you ask Marcus Carey, I knew Marcus Carey forever through Bunker Labs, and then we invested in ThreatCare, which he sold to ReliaQuest. And it is around plotting data points, right? So you and your company are here at time A, and then you check in with me at time B, and hopefully it's here and C, and sometimes we're investing here in C and D. And one thing I recommend to entrepreneurs and early stage companies is to start the drumbeat, right? And to do that, I would do a newsletter with an investor update. Figure out the right battle rhythm. It could be once a month, every other month, once a quarter. And this is just taking a page out of Techstars, and lots of accelerators what they tell their companies. But at the top, you're talking about what the company does. Always remind us, because again, back to the 1,500 companies, I need a memory. To be reminded of what you do sometimes. And then you just say, here's my asks, and here's the update. I just closed this customer. And so I start to follow it, then I get interested in it, and then we figure out the right time to re-engage. And a lot of times it just shows that you're your investor, because if you look at our website, moonshotscapital.com, you'll see the criteria, and you'll see $500,000 or more raised. Nothing is absolutely fixed. It's usually some combination of our criteria, but I like to feel like I'm part of your team as you're building the company. So I'm saying, like, you're people on this call, people in your friends and family, your neighbors, like, they also want to know what your company's doing, and that's a way, again, to build a team, which we're very good at doing in the military. Yeah. So in thinking about,
yeah, and that cadence continues too. After you invest, you still expect those updates. We still expect the compliance packages at the bank. So yeah, I think that's great advice.
Okay, so let me turn to some questions. We have about 10 minutes left. I'll start with Andrew Glaze question. I decided to forego talking to VCs until I can show initial revenue on my platform, sometimes in Q1 21. What steps can I take now to prepare, and how do I position my pitch to benefit from having some revenue versus being in the concept stage?
Yeah.
Anita?
Yeah, I say if you have a company and you're not ready for VCs, continue to tell everybody about what you do, right? Because the more you talk about it, the more you share it with the world, you're going to get people who will be able to help you to get to some of the places that you want to get faster. Because again, as veterans, a lot of times we feel like we have to do it all ourselves, right? I don't need any help. I can do it. Don't worry about it. I can get it done. But put yourself out there. Do some of these podcasts. You can write articles. On LinkedIn. Something where you're showing your business to as many people as possible, because you never know. I mean, there are some VCs that do invest in companies that are early stage. So I wouldn't just think that you're not ready for VC. I would say continue to keep pushing forward, but try to utilize any resources that are out there that you can find. My thought is to do a accelerator, because I think that is a really good way for people like us to learn more about this whole business. And even if venture capital is not the best solution, you could have angel investors. There are also grants. You can do crowdfunding. So there's so many different avenues that you can take. But if you're not out there and people aren't talking to you and telling you, hey, this is out there for you, these are the options, then it's going to take you longer to get to where you want to go.
And I'll speak for Cliff by saying what you could do now is get on your banking platform.
Yeah, make friends with a banker.
It's true. That's true, because I mean, as you're out talking, you're also your number one salesman too, right? So revenue is just as important as capital injection into the company, probably more important, right? And so I think as you continue to network and meet new people, hopefully you're finding revenue just like you're finding investment opportunities.
Yeah, I would offer, as basic as this sounds, getting that pitch deck tight.
Right.
Reference the 1,500 deals that we see. Like, the deck needs to be tight. It needs to tell a compelling story. And venture is always in the hunt for the hockey stick, right? How do you tell that hockey stick story? I would also do some intel work and map the investors, right? Because again, there's so much inbound, the warmer the introduction, the better. And odds are, especially with your military network, you could probably get a warm introduction from somebody in your network. And that's another reason to be part of the Capital Factory, part of Bunker Labs. And I just will beat those drums all day long. I've talked about earlier in the fireside chat about organizations, and Mike was like, join them all. And I'm with him on that.
Mm-hmm.
Capital Factory, for example, and Bunker Labs are both massive muscles. Like, they are massive muscles, but they must be flexed. You have to flex those muscles. They're not going to just serve up all the investors, all the introductions, all the resources. But I do encourage vets, especially joining the Capital Factory. I'm always double stomping on that. Okay, another question in from Elias. Anita, thanks for your introduction. Did you find you had to take niche classes to better value companies, or were you a business major prior to joining the military?
No, I majored in counseling and communications because I wanted to be able to understand people, but I also love to talk. So no, I did not. Media was my background, and so when I got out, I started a media company, and of course, you cannot do anything these days without tech, and so I just kind of moved into that, right? So no, I didn't take classes, but if I'm looking at a company, obviously I'm going to be researching and looking to see what it is that you do, and to make sure that we do our due diligence on the company. But no, I don't think you have to to per se have an MBA. I don't have an MBA. I have a master's, but I don't have an MBA to be in this business. So and just to offer a little advice, I will tell you, don't try to get it perfect. If you have an idea, if you have a thought that you really want to create a business, put it on paper, start working on it. Don't wait. Don't wait until it's perfect, because again, there are people out there that will help to fund your business, but they don't know unless you share it. So please, if you have a business idea, just keep pushing forward. Don't stop. And, if there's anything that I can do to help, obviously I'll, please let me know.
Yeah. I got out of the military in 2009 in my 17th year. I know for a lot of vets, like, what? But it worked out. And I've had a couple of exits since then, but I do have that imposter syndrome around not having done an MBA. But the truth is, it's been like an 11-year executive MBA program. So I think it's what we look for is really knowing your business really well. That's part of the extraordinary leadership. So I think we got about 5 minutes left. Rebecca, you can pull when necessary. But maybe let's just go around and some thoughts on, assume that most people on the other side of this camera are trying to raise money for the company. What advice do we have that we haven't necessarily shared or hasn't been teased out in this panel that you want to offer? And maybe Cliff, we start with you.
Yeah, I would push people to focus on the demand side of the equation. I think human nature has a very fundamental thing that I've discovered almost daily, whether it's in corporate America or social interactions, is you can't push a rope. So people have to want you to be successful. There has to be an opportunity to be successful, whether it's micro level or macro level. And when you think about a company and what drives hockey stick growth, it's insatiable demand for a product or a service, right? And so make sure that you're aligned with demand that could actually lead to you being successful and back into solving that problem that way, rather than, not to say that things don't come out of left field and teach us how to interact and live our lives differently than we ever did before. I mean, you look at the iPhone and Facebook, certainly, but by and large, most disruptive technology falls into being pulled by consumer demand or B2B demand. And so, especially when you're getting started. So that's kind of the advice I would leave with people. It's easier to articulate your service in a demand versus creating something from somewhere new.
And my advice, I guess.
Very good. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Anita.
My advice would be, don't lead with capital, right? Don't allow money to be your reason for not starting a business. I would, no offense, Cliff, but I would say loans are the last thing you want to do. I started my business with just my salary, my military salary. So don't allow money to be the driving force. You can do more with less, and just everything that you need is within yourself. I mean, what is it? I know there's like a saying or something, but truly it is so true. We have, the military equipped us to be able to do this. I believe the military equipped us to be entrepreneurs. And I believe every single veteran out there, if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, please, go for it, do it, just do it.
Well, I'll draft behind that, Anita. I often tell people, like, it's okay if it doesn't work out.
Right.
I mean, most startups don't work out, and you'll learn from it. And so not to be afraid of following that path. And usually in early stage, we're talking about a lot of pivots.
Yes.
Right? I can give two great examples. One, Blake Hall, the CEO of ID.me. Many of you are familiar with the platform. If you're not, you should be part of the ID.me platform for the identity and everything it can bring you. But that started out as Troop Swap, which was like exchanging goods like Craigslist on a base. And then it became Troop ID, because Blake had figured out how to verify the identity of military and veterans. And then it became larger than the veteran community and became ID.me. It was pivot, pivot, pivot. And now it's like ginormous, exploding, unicorning. And the same with Sean Lane, Air Force veteran, CEO of a company called Olive. And we're I'll say moonshots unbiased here, because we're angel investors in ID.me and invested multiple times. Same with Olive. And Sean Lane had like 27 pivots, and then he's AI and healthcare, and he's a unicorn as well. So expect that there's going to be some pivoting, and be comfortable with that. Be comfortable with the discomfort. Exactly. All right, before I hand off to Joseph, I want to do family photo here. All right, Cliff, Anita. All right, get ready to smile into the camera. Wait. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, Joseph, I had to get that selfie. Joseph, can you get in here?
I love it.
All right, I want to do another one. Yeah. I want to do another one. All right. Smile. All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Anita, Cliff, that was awesome. Thank you both for your time and wisdom. Joseph,
thank you.
The master of ceremonies. Back to you, brother.
I want to build on what Cliff and Anita were saying. And I get into trouble for this all the time. So, I guess what, Anita, you're over here. What I get into all the time is this idea between, is it promotion? Is it annoying networking? Are you nagging? Like, what is it? And I just say, look, you got to be shameless sometimes and just realize that if you're not telling your story, nobody else is going to be telling your story. And so Cliff and Anita, I want to have you both back on Catalyst Talks, which is something I've invented during COVID, but we'll get into that later on. But great stuff. Craig, you as well, master moderator as well, pulling it all out. And you're indeed right. You got to get
Joseph. No. Hey, one thing you just said, I want to double tap.
Please, we got some time.
I appreciate being pinged. I mean, I get a lot of inbound deal flow. And so it is no harm at all when you say, hey, not sure if you saw my email last week. Like, I need that and appreciate that. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs like, oh, I don't want to upset the VC by seeming too aggressive, right? It's your point, Joseph. You need to be shameless.
Yeah. And Anita and Cliff, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but you're very busy people. Like Craig, you have huge deal flow. What I tell people is if you want something done, ask a busy person, but be prepared that they don't see the first, second, or third text or emails. Be persistent, but be polite.
Absolutely.
That's fair.
Perfect.
All right. Well, we're going to segue once again. So here's what's going to happen now. Again, this is the beauty of the platform we're in called Hopin. Turn your cameras on, get ready. We're going to spend about 10 minutes and we're going to go into basically it's like speed dating. We've got it set for 5 minutes. So we'll each hopefully get to meet 2 people. And then depending on how the conversation goes, you might be able to go down there and hit the button that says connect and follow later. Depending on how you have filled out your profile or how they have filled out their profile, you'll also see a button on there that has either their LinkedIn or their Twitter or perhaps their website. I'm going to be a part of this. And so hopefully see a few of you over there in the networking. And with that, Rebecca and team, why don't we go ahead and give everybody 10 minutes by my watch. It's about 43 past the hour. And so we'll be back here at about 53, 54 past the hour, and we'll get into our next panel. See you all in networking. Okay, we are back from networking. I hope that made sense. It's all a part of the new normal. Lots of buttons there on the screen for you to be able to figure out who you want to connect to in terms of seeing how their profile is built out in LinkedIn, Twitter, or their website. If you got in there and discovered that yours isn't filled out, take the time to do that now during this next panel. And then in addition, I also want to point out there are polls. So if you look over to the right-hand side, as you're looking at the screen over here to the, what I don't know, would they be my left, your right? It's backwards when you're live on television. But the fact is there are polls that we can have. In fact, we're going to launch one here in a few minutes that asks, what do you think of the production today? Is this being helpful? Was the networking something that you got something out of? As you saw in networking, you can either connect, you can leave early, and Hop-ins now change it. You can actually add more time to what's going on. So we're going to transition now into veteran stories. Now we call them veteran success stories, and these are all very successful people, but I'm going to let the narrator really allow each person to introduce themselves, because as we go through this discussion, you're going to hear that even though we are featuring them as veteran narratives and veteran narrative success stories, and they are all successful, not every journey that any of us take is easy, and it comes with a lot of bumps and bruises along the road. So again, I want to thank Microsoft for being our lead sponsor for today's event, and will be serving as moderator for this event. And without stealing the thunder, you're going to meet some of my favorite people and favorite veteran stories in the world. So with that, go ahead and take it away and walk us through this last group panel that we're going to do before we break into the later sessions, which I'll get into in a little bit. So take it away.
Hello there, everyone. Joseph, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Exactly what you said. This year has been full of many trials and tribulations for all of us. And I think it's always awesome when we can talk about that transparently and also talk about the success, which is important to hone in on during this year with a pandemic. My name is Maria Brown Spence. I'm the founder and CEO of a nonprofit based here in Austin called Hearts to Heal. We are working to improve the mental health of the veteran community and the BIPOC community. So let's go into some numbers which I thought were important for this panel discussion, as we are speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. 9.1% of all US businesses are majority owned by veterans, or 2.52 million businesses in the US that are majority owned by veterans. Also, $1.14 trillion of total annual revenue of veteran-owned businesses. Those numbers are super impressive and show why this conversation is even more needed, especially during this time. So I introduced myself, and now I will turn it over to Mr. Chris Cortez.
Well, hi, Maria. Thank you. Chris Cortez, Microsoft. 33 years plus in the Marines and 14 years now at Microsoft.
Thank you. Brendan?
Hey, everybody. Greetings from Austin. My name is Brendan Mullen, founder and CEO of MKS2 Technologies. Maria, do you want us to kind of keep on going, or just a little teaser?
Yeah, give a little blurb of your businesses, and we can go back to Chris after Samantha as well. But if you'll just introduce yourself, service, and then also a brief blurb about your business.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm a former Army captain. Got out of the service in 2006. And like those who had a chance to listen to Michael earlier talk about the transition, I kind of stumbled a little bit. And found an opportunity to be in a startup in the DC metro area with a college classmate of mine, another veteran, and kind of figured out a little bit of the game of government consulting, as well as procurement and acquisition industry of the federal government. And so I'm on to my second startup, MKS2 Technologies, headquartered here in Austin, Texas. We are in operations in 38 states, DC and Puerto Rico. We support the United States Army, Navy, Department of Veteran Affairs, and most recently a new DoD customer. So we have 184 full-time teammates around the country. And I'm really proud to say that over the course of the last number of years, we've landed on the Austin's Fast 50 3 times. We've landed on Inc. Magazine's Fastest 5,000 Companies 4 times. And most importantly, and one that I think of as a tombstone type entry on the company's kind of tombstone is that we were on the first inaugural list of the Vet 50, which was the fastest veteran-owned growing businesses in America. So I'm really super proud to be here. One, as we near Veterans Day, I'm really further proud to say that 27% of our teammates are former service members. So like Michael talked, or Craig talked, or the rest of the folks talked, we kind of understand and know what we get when we get someone who has put their hand up and sworn their oath to our nation, right? You're going to get hard work and hustle and integrity, selfless service and courage. And so you almost get that at the baseline of someone coming into your door. So we lean really hard into the veteran community, as well as military spouses and family members as well. So thrilled to be here. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you, Brendan. Samantha.
Hi, thank you so much for including me on the panel. I would say, full disclosure, I'm not a veteran. That's because I'm still in. I just have a few bags under my eyes, came off of a super drill weekend this past weekend with COVID and hurricane duty. But I have the honor of serving in the Mississippi Air National Guard. Part-time is a drill status guardsman. And then during the week, I'm the co-founder and catalyst for Re3D. Where we make the world's largest affordable industrial 3D printers. Starts at the size of a toilet, if you want to visualize that, and goes as big as your budget, now up to the size of a shipping container. And we have the privilege of printing not only with just filament, the rope-like material you may have seen at a school, but we can also print with pellets like you see here. I had to borrow something from the kitchen that allows you to make, say, the Air Force logo or a rocket or something larger that can go as big as your budget. And then we can also print with flake. So this is shredded up water bottle, and it allows us to print directly from trash. So we can print with trash and not trash, and bigger. And we're honored to be now in 50 plus countries. And it's really a testament to people tuning in today who have voted for us and in competitions and have advocated for our success. Things that make us unique is we are bootstrapped as part of our social mission as a spinoff of Engineers Without Borders, NASA Johnson Space Center, and our time there. And we're open source, and we work with dirty fingernails. Sometimes we have accidents, clearly, to manufacture ourselves out of Houston, Texas, with offices in Austin and San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Thank you so much, Samantha. And we can't forget Chris, who'd like to get his overview and insight. And it is the Marine Corps birthday today. I'm the proud daughter of both parents that served in the Marine Corps. So happy birthday to you, sir. And we'll allow this opportunity for you to introduce yourself more in depth and a little bit about your role at Microsoft.
Well, sure. Thanks, Maria. Yes, today is the 245th birthday of the Marine Corps. We have in Microsoft a very connected military community. And the Marines at Microsoft at 8 o'clock this morning had their own virtual celebration of the Marine Corps birthday. We played a video of the Commandant of the Marine Corps cutting the cake there at 8th and I streets where Marine Barracks is located. I've been in Microsoft since 2006, but in 2014, we stood up what's called Microsoft Military Affairs. And I head that up. I'm vice president for military affairs at Microsoft. And the crown jewel of what we do is called the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, MSSA. And I think it's important just to spend a little time to tell you that this is an 18-week program. Think of it as a technology boot camp. Doesn't matter what you do in the military. We have cooks, we have truck drivers, we have medics who have gone through this program. Don't have to come from an IT background, although that helps. It gives you a leg up. But at the end of the 18 weeks, you can get a career in the tech industry. I mean, we have over 2,300 graduates in 7.5 years. The 94% graduation rate. 96% of those are either employed, a few go back to college, and over 600 companies have hired from this program. So this is a program that was built because over 200,000 military people leave active service every year. And when it came to the tech industry, there were very no opportunities, no transition opportunities. So that's kind of a background of what I do. I love it. The people that come through this program are amazing. Veterans are amazing, and they make fantastic employees. And we can talk, more on those things later, but that's kind of what I do.
Awesome. Well, I think that's the perfect transition for one of the questions on what would you tell military service members that are currently serving? What resources can they use while they're in to help with the transition? We often hear the common thread of veterans leaving service and not really knowing what to do after that, not really knowing where to find resources. And what can you do, or what can we tell them to allow them to have success once leaving the military?
Well, I think that Brendan, Samantha, and you, Maria, are all examples of what we can do. I think that it's incumbent upon veterans who successfully transition to do two things. Wherever they land, in my case at Microsoft, at the right place at the right time, have those conversations where you tell industry, you talk about the value that a veteran brings to that industry. And at the same time, you go back and talk to those that are still wearing a uniform and remind them just how much they have to offer, the skills that they've learned, what they've gone through, the leadership, the discipline. They have traits that are highly valued in industry. So I would say we start right there in the industry where you are working, and talking to as many that are serving as you can, and inspire them. Tell them that they have a lot to offer, and to stand tall when they make that transition, when they go into interviews. They have so much to offer.
I think those were very inspiring words, and that can trickle down to anyone, not even those in the military, but just to everyone as a whole, to really hone in on the skills that they have utilized and know that they matter, essentially. Brendan or Samantha, do you have anything you'd like to include on that?
Sure. I think right now is a really interesting time to start a company, particularly for veterans, because we're scrappy and running a bootstrapped open source social enterprise. One thing that I have found that has been really interesting with the pandemic is, everything's online, and we're using loosely the same platforms over and over again, Happen, like you see here, Remo, and other tools. And what's great is like you get to a table and you're normalized, and only so many people can join that conversation. And people don't know if you have, the budget for an expensive trade show exhibit, or they only see you from the top up, so you only have to buy one blouse. I wear the same hoodie over and over again. If you guys have seen me at other events, I just zip it up over whatever I'm wearing. Right now it happens to be workout clothes, but so there's a great opportunity just to get out there and to have a voice and to be normalized with other people, to ask questions. It's a great time to learn too. A lot of the events are recorded, so there can be 2 or 3 things going on at the same time. You don't have the time you would have spent traveling now, and you can attend one event and then listen to one later. So I would say, take advantage of this virtual format while we have it, and that opportunity to be equalized. And more importantly, there's a litany, I think, people now too, with global supply chains being disrupted, which is a different conversation. They recognize the need for trade skills, the need for new innovation, the need for local resources. So there's huge opportunity for new industry, and there are so many resources out there for people looking to start businesses, and even through the growth stage, like Brendan and I are at. They're grouped loosely in different ways. Some are around geography, some are around the type of product you have, Some are around how you identify as an individual. My military working dog really wants me to throw the ball right now. It may be your background, your race, your social demographic. It could be your sexual orientation, but and then there are programs around experiences you've had in life, whether you're a mother or you're a veteran. And so I would say find your tribe. There are literally corporate sponsors like Microsoft that are investing in communities that you might relate to, that want to see you grow. And I would be remiss not to promote Bunker Labs in this conversation, which has been just a treasure to both MKS2, I'll let Brendan share more, as well as Re3D. They've stepped in and supported us both in Austin and our Houston location, have seen me through deployments and tasking, most recently COVID, when the company was in crisis, and I'm attached to R North for the 3-star, but take advantage of Bunker Labs. They have some great resources to walk you through every season of your growth. And then also, if you're a woman, shout out to Dwin and all that Dell is doing too for Dell Women Entrepreneurial Network. Brendan, I'll punt it to you though. I know you know a lot of tools as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, you were almost speaking, taking words out of my mouth, Samantha. At one point at the front of that, you mentioned, in a down economy, right? There's all unique opportunities. There's been a level set taking place, right? You mentioned, at this point, you don't have to spend the resources and the time and money on the conferences and or the booths and whatnot. And this is the perfect venue to zoom right into someone's office and or home to formally introduce themselves, talk about what you can do and how you can drive value. I can draw back. I started this company in the midst of the first housing crisis in November of 2008. So we just celebrated our 12th birthday last week. So I took a risk and jumped in the Great Depression. Great Recession. And I think there's ample opportunity to be able to find that slipstream as the economy increases if you had the ability now to kind of build those cornerstone value or foundational building blocks within the business today so that you can hit the slipstream when the economy turns back on.
All wonderful insight. And Samantha, I'd like to give this question to you. Essentially, one of the words that you mentioned in your conversation was innovation and being innovative. That's a buzzword in the tech world, something you hear all the time. And there's something that your company is using to create something that's useful during the pandemic. Could you go into a little more detail on how you guys pivoted due to COVID and how you're working to improve social impact? Sure. So
the cornerstone of our company, we are a social enterprise. And so when in manufacturing, I'll back up, there were a lot of tells Q4 last year that we would likely enter a recession. So we had that advantage and had already had both sales and marketing internal retreat and then a company retreat around, how we would prep and mitigate if that occurred. So that's where we're a little bit fortunate. The other kind of thing that occurred in parallel that was a forcing function for us is when around the week when South by was canceled, actually I'll back up again. I'll say in parallel too, we are in 50 plus countries and we have been for several years now. So, we saw some of the ramifications of COVID with our customers and we were noticing that they were mobilizing to meet demand of hospitals that were running short on personal protective equipment. So throughout Q1, we were very abreast with this and supporting those customers and, collaborating our teammate Charlotte and the open source communities around that. So when it came to the States though, I was told that I was being tasked as part of the JACE to go forward to attach to R North in the COVID response. And I was cut 60-day orders and said they would be renewed indefinitely as needed. That's a scary thing when you're single and you have a dog and you have a manufacturing company and you have to have a conversation with your co-founder. And, that's where organizations like Bunker are really helpful. But in anticipation of that, I drove to Houston. It was the last time I left Austin for almost 6 months besides that activation. And I met with my co-founder in person. I said, what are we going to do? And we created a doc called Corona Day 2020. and at the end of it, we got a 6-pack of beer and sat there late into that Saturday night, less than 24 hours before I was activated, and said, what do we need to think about? Like, what is social distancing going to look like in a factory? And, how are we going to serve? And one thing we decided we would do is we were going to start, and even as long as I was activated, and if I had to record it, I would record it in advance. But he and I personally were going to provide a video update of where we were, where the company's finances were, what our projections were, what data we were getting, and then turn it over to the team and say, you know what, 50 eyes are better than 4. What can we do? And what we decided to frame it as is the only thing that's going to be worth fighting for if we're paralyzed are things that relate to our social mission. So our team was thinking very creatively, and we had an all hands this morning, and we always kick it off with like you can either do show and tell or what did you do in lockdown over this weekend. And there's been some great stories and just a mental check-in with everyone. And then we talk about the state of the company, we brainstorm. And so we did it today, and we never thought we'd be doing it this long. But what came out of that was our teammates saying, as soon as they were getting phone calls from doctors at MD Anderson in Houston and, here in Austin that we're running short on PPE, is like, let's turn our print farm and figure out a social distancing structure in the factory so that we can support PPE. And then we immediately jumped in because we already had contacts with healthcare providers and at NASA being a spinoff, to support things like the ventilator development, to support designs that are now authorized for community use through the NIH 3D print exchange, and literally printing thousands of PPE. Coincidentally, like this face shield you see here that we developed for Texas Children's. But what we found is everyone's needs were a little different, but there was definitely a need for collaboration, and we're still printing PPE, trying to support, our customers in Africa and our community there. But what was the blessing is the Title III money came down, and that resulted in government contracts. And because we had self-identified, we had these certifications, we had these networks, and we had customers that had our platform too, so it'd be standardized. We ended up getting 2 contracts to the federal government to produce PPE when sales slowed down and our bots were stuck at borders and our customers couldn't pay net 30. And it also gave us a lot of social collateral. And it has dramatically increased our revenue and contract print services, as well as individuals now asking us for our materials testing services. So it was just a great way for us to get out. A lot of 3D printing companies, including also in Austin, really stepped forward. And our teammates said, that's not enough. When the demand started to get satisfied in Texas around, May, June, our team noticed that, particularly we have a lot of ladies on our team, no surprise. And our shipping manager really wanted to get her nails filled, and our lead builder. And, they were talking to their nail salon, which is Vietnamese owned. And they were saying, we didn't qualify for the PPP loan, and we have a lot of immigrants on our team, and we want to reopen, and we know there's going to be rules around that. So they went and stepped forward and created what's called the PPE for the People campaign. And Barclays just gave us $100,000 of unreasonable to continue it to help, particularly businesses of color and minority businesses that couldn't afford it, have PPE to reopen safely. So not quite a pivot, but it certainly grew our services, and we're proud to say our revenue is up 20% over last year.
Wow, very impressive. And I am getting the yellow light that we are going to be running out of time here soon. But I did want to ask Brendan, as you've seen rapid growth during this pandemic, what are some of the growing pains that you have encountered, and what are some ways that you got through that for other entrepreneurs that might be seeing the same thing?
We've been very candidly very grateful for the growth we've had during the pandemic, right? There's a lot of companies, communities, neighbors who haven't been as fortunate. And so we've had this significant growth. In fact, last I looked, we were 84% year over year growth from 19 through 20. So we've right in the thick of it, right? So in a remote environment, growing during a pandemic, communication. I have had to hand over, I don't want to necessarily say the word reins, but I definitely now have multiple fantastic teammates with a hand on the wheel, right? It's no longer me as that one founder, and I was out there kind of stumbling along aimlessly for the first several years of the business, trying to figure it out and figure out my channel I can sell into. And now today, it's a group of extraordinary teammates. And I mentioned earlier, 27% of our workforce are former service members. And listening to Samantha talk about how she is pivoting in an international environment, take her and carbon copy it to many of our teammates on our team. Reliable, strong, smart, competent, hustle, the whole 9 yards at what we get. And in fact, I want to zoom out for a second, and I know we don't have too much more time, but thinking about the team, right? We're going to be able to go through resumes and figure out experience that aligns specifically to the job title and the role that we're looking for internally, or perhaps to service in front of a client. But one of the things I'm really interested in is the body of experience you had before you showed up with your resume at my front door. And I think about some of my teammates right now. The guy that runs our day-to-day operations, he was formerly a drill sergeant, right? He's got that finger on the pulse of attention to detail and almost an anal retentive kind of behaviors, which I love, and I think he leans into it. Our director of our VP of strategy, she was formerly a chef and ran one of the highest revenuing restaurants in America as the COO. So he understands people activation, movement, stress. One of our director of innovation is a social justice warrior and advocate. She runs into burning houses, right? Like then you go back and you're like, oh, our director of people was a combat pilot. Our senior recruiter is a Bikram yoga instructor. All these different unique experiences allows for us to take bodies of experience and bring it to the plate here today for MKS2 Technologies, and to further, most importantly, service our clients with a really rounded body of experience.
Thank you so much. And we are going to get ready to move into Q&A here shortly. So if you do have any questions that we can try to answer, please include those in the chat. So I'd like to ask this question to Chris. As we know, Microsoft, this is such a recognized brand across the world. And we also know that only 1% of the population answers that call to service, essentially. How does Microsoft internally support their military community, and what can small businesses or growing businesses do to support the veteran population? As we know, this is a very unique demographic.
Well, less than 1% serve, and it's a very special group of people. At Microsoft, it's all about inclusion. We really believe in inclusion. And we have several of what we call employee resource groups, ERGs. And the military ERG is one of the most recent to be formally recognized and stood up. That military ERG is not only closely connected and is there to support one another. That group provides mentorship for new military hires. It provides mentorship to that 18-week tech academy that I talked about. And I think what has evolved is that within the company, there is an appreciation of the veteran employee at the company. In fact, at times when our CEO talks about inclusion, he has mentioned the fact that Microsoft has a program for those that served in the military that want to get into the technology industry, which is the MSSA program that I talked about, and includes the fact that veterans are very much part of inclusion in the company. I just think that Microsoft is doing a great job in terms of supporting the veteran community.
Wonderfully well said. And to throw some additional numbers out for you, 84.3% of veteran-owned businesses are owned by males. 15.2% are female veteran-owned businesses. 85.1% are white-owned, 10.7% African-American, 7% Hispanic, and 2.1% Asian American. So as we think about diversity and inclusion, remember these numbers as well for the businesses that you support and invest in. Let's see. So I'd like to open this question up to all panelists, essentially. What are some of the most transferable skills to teach that you build in the military? Or that you're taught, skills to tech that you build in the military? And I'll say that again since it was a little fumble there. What are some of the most transferable skills in tech that you build in the military?
I could say in a manufacturing context, it's been a real blessing that in the Air Force, we really like checklists, because we're around planes, and when you're building robots that start at the size of a toilet and go bigger, and you are shipping them all over the world, you want to make sure there's quality control, and so we rely a lot on checklists and SOPs, and then I didn't have the honor of being enlisted, but on the officer side, a lot of the leadership stuff we go through when we commission, and then in captain school and other PME, is really focused on being in environments where you're so saturated you can't do everything that needs to get done, and so you have to prioritize and be okay letting things go and feel confident in those decisions. And I would say in a startup I do that every day, so I'm really thankful that the military helps me, provides environments sometimes where I can fail and exercise those skill sets.
Yeah, I think that the day-to-day things that a military person does, the discipline, things aren't programmed for you. I mean, you're going to run into things that you have to figure out. You have to do things with the resources that you have at hand. And I think probably one of the most valuable assets that a military person brings is the concept of teamwork. Teamwork is so important, and the military person brings that in spades. I mean, you don't succeed in the technology industry as an individual. You succeed as a team. And any technology company has so many different moving parts simultaneously that make it successful. And so key to that is teamwork. So to me, probably the most valuable trait is teamwork.
Maria, what I would offer is a piggyback to what Chris just finished by saying teamwork, but because of what the military gives to us as service members is every walk of life. You encounter every walk of life during that time in service, from geographics to race to religion, to everything, and political beliefs, philosophical beliefs, all that. And so you now have that team atmosphere that's kind of really omnipresent as a service member, but you're now doing so with so many different walks of life that give you just a window's glimpse into the world as a whole.
Wonderful Jim shared here today in this conversation. I think many takeaways that we can hone in on in our future endeavors, be it entrepreneurship, work, life, all the things that we have to balance nowadays. And this is the time I would like to allow for you all to leave any shameless plugs or upcoming resources that you all have, as if your companies are hiring, any tools that you specifically provide to the military community, anything that you would like to leave the audience with here today.
Go ahead, Samantha, Anya.
Yeah, we are hiring. It is not unapproachable. You have to have 3D printing experience. So whether it's photos in a portfolio or on your cell phone, we want to know that you have a passion for our product as well as our business. Go to re3d.org/careers. And if you are a small business in need of PPE, we do have that grant from Barclays and Unreasonable. We'd love to ensure that you and your team have the ability to operate safely. So you can Google PPE for the people with Impact Hub, and and we'll do our best to make sure we get that to you right away. But more importantly, if you have any questions and you're slugging through this, like, please reach out to us. We're here for you. We're all learning together. You can reach me on LinkedIn or Samantha@re3d.org.
I'll finish by saying, this is an Austin kind of based ecosystem, and as the defense space here continues to evolve and grow, I am so fortunate to be here with many of you all, from Joseph to of course Sabrina and Craig and the whole 9 yards of those who really have planted the seeds and watched this community grow here in Austin. I am proud to say that MKS2 Technologies is perhaps, and I don't know if I'm, correct or not, but I think by and large, we might be the only company here locally that both has Army Futures work as well as a DIU awardee through the Defense Innovation Unit. So we're excited to continue to evolve as a professional services company, now moving into a product-based business. And so I look forward to continue to grow, but also most importantly, I want everyone on this call and or as your Rolodex comes in, as new service members are coming and retiring, or getting out of the service and PCSing back here to Texas and Central Texas, that you can use MKS2, myself as a resource to steer you in the right direction, and or have an opportunity to storyboard and swap stories and continue keeping the Austin community in a collaborative nature. I can definitively tell you, when I lived in the West Coast and when I lived in the East Coast, both in Silicon Valley and the DC metro area, it was a very transactional community. And here it's so different. It's such a collaborative. It's like, hey, how can I help you? And at some point, I'm not even worrying about that favor later. It's a matter of trying to help someone get that next step, whether it be professionally or personally. So
at Microsoft, we're celebrating Veterans Day tomorrow, and we actually have a 3-day celebration. We have events going on today. Tomorrow's a big day, of course, and then Thursday as well. And tomorrow we're going to be announcing a transition toolkit for those that want to make their way into the tech industry. And this toolkit is going to provide tips on, how you leverage your LinkedIn network, how to optimize your virtual workspace, tips on how to build a winning resume, and so on. But if you go to military.microsoft.com, it's all right there. And the reality is that Microsoft is indeed a veteran-ready company. And, I encourage all veterans that are interested in technology to go to the career site at Microsoft, see what open roles there are there, and apply. And thanks for having me. I wish you all a happy Veterans Day tomorrow, and thank you all for what you're doing for this community.
Yes, thank you so much, Samantha, Brendan, and Chris. And I see Brendan.
You asked for a shameless plug, so I have to do it. I invited my mom and dad to join us on this. So Mom and Dad, if you're there, I miss you. I haven't seen you since January. I love you. And thanks for joining us. And thanks for giving me those building blocks for us to even be on the screen today. So thanks, Mom and Dad.
That's wonderful. That's Capital Factory. Thank you again for this opportunity. To the wonderful panelists. This is what it's all about here, is having a conversation with your fellow peers transparently and organically, nothing scripted, just from person to person, even though we don't have that same human interaction. So thank you all for attending. Again, my name is Maria Brown Spence. You can reach me on LinkedIn at Maria Brown Spence. I'm the only one with that name on there, or you can send me a direct email at maria@hearts2hill.org. So thank you again to our wonderful panelists, the gems that you provided us today, and Capital Factory and Microsoft for this opportunity. And I believe Joseph will be coming back on shortly, but thank you all so much.
That's right.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.
Yeah. I mean, what can I say, Maria? This is not easy. Live panels, live moderating with all the technologies, but you made it look easy. Thank you for hosting this. Chris, again, what Microsoft is doing, that toolkit for transition tomorrow. I hope a lot of people take advantage of that opportunity. And then Samantha, wow, to watch the entrepreneurial journey you've gone through is amazing. Folks, if you're not following what she's doing with RE3D, please do so. If it's not an award she's collecting, it's a contract that she's collecting. But more importantly, thank you, Samantha, for your continued service in our military today. And Brendan, man, yeah, you're crushing it, making us all quite proud. So we're going to transition now to the next section, the tailored sessions. As you're looking at them there on your screen, they're over on the right-hand side. Before I introduce these, I want to leave 2 points on how we're thinking about this. First of all, these tailored sessions couldn't be done without CACI and Baker Botts. They are bringing their subject matter experts to the table, literally here today live. The way you take advantage of that is to get into those rooms quick. There's 2 ways to do it. One is actually on screen. So you share your camera. If you're one of the first 10 or 20 people, depending on the room, you can actually be literally at the table, faces shown and engaging in conversation. In the event you get there later, or you switch rooms, which is fine too, you'll just be there listening, watching the other faces that are at the table and participating. And then the last thing I'll say is, on a personal note, this is what charges my batteries, to be able to pay forward all of the people that invested in not only my growth as an individual, but our teams as we built them, both in nonprofits and companies. And to be able to be a part of this today has been a real treat. You can find me in 2 areas. Number one, with the University of Texas at Austin. Again, like I said, the University of Texas is a world-class partner and destination for our military veterans and families. The new president, Jay Hartzell, is committed to being that and has hired me on board to help serve as kind of a translator, if you will, of all the different things that we're doing now and what we could be doing in the future. Jack Ryan, you mentioned the MSTC program at McCombs. It's a gem. There's so many more like that. And then the other way you can reach me is here at the Capital Factory. You've got my wings here behind me on the 8th floor, whether it's in a virtual setting or when we get back together again. I'd love to know how I can help with your companies. And then finally, I'm still an entrepreneur as well with Grayline Group and all the different projects we're working on. You can go to graylinegroup.com. And then the different things that I'm working on to help pay forward are all the learnings that I share on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. I try to be as present as possible. So stay healthy, stay in touch, and most importantly, stay together going forward. So as we move into the tailored sessions, after that, stick around. There's going to be more networking, but this is where I, as your host and moderator for today's session, will be saying goodbye to the whole audience. Again, I'm Joseph Kopser. Thanks for participating in this Capital Factory Veterans and Technology Summit, hosted by Microsoft, also sponsored by CACI and Baker Botts. Be sure to follow them on LinkedIn, show them some love and appreciation for supporting us today. And most importantly, for those of us that are veterans, those of you that are veterans, happy Veterans Day tomorrow. And do not forget the families that also served alongside you. I'm Joseph Kopser. Take care.